Circuit Court for the County of Kent is now in session. Honorable Judge Rossi presiding. We are here in the matter of AB case number 23-50870. This hearing is being recorded on Zoom, live streamed on YouTube.
And this matter comes before the court today for the purpose of a review hearing. At this time, I would invite counsel to place your appearances on the record.
Your Honor, Michael Tabiran, lawyer, Guardian Ad Litem, representing the minor child.
Thank you.
Lindsay Dubas, attorney for the mother, Christy Beamer.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Steve Simpkins on behalf of the father, Maurice Sherrod.
Very good. Thank you. And with that, Mr. Tabiran, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will call Melody Mitchell, please.
Very well. Ms. Mitchell, if you'd raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony today will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed, Mr. Tabiran.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before I begin, I do have one exhibit I will move to admit. That is the case service plan, which includes the parent agency treatment plans dated 12/5 of 24.
Very good. Any objection to the admission of exhibit number 1?
No objection.
No, Your Honor.
It may be admitted. You may proceed, Mr. Tabiran.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Mitchell, where are you employed?
At Samaritas.
And you are the assigned foster care worker for the Alana Beamer case?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Starting with Alana, can you give an update on how she is doing in her placement?
Alana is doing well in her placement. She continues to work in a lot of therapies. Her caregivers are doing a really great job of making sure her needs are being met, that she's progressing through services. They're following recommendations from therapists. She goes to several appointments every week. She has physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. Her caregivers make sure that everything is organized, so she's getting there whether they're driving them or our agency is helping to drive them, and parents are able to attend those. Alana's doing really well and making improvements. She's starting to do better than she had previously with like eating and drinking. So still making some improvements there, which is great. She did during this last couple weeks have a case where she got RSV and rhinovirus, so did spend some time in the hospital, but she's home now and recovering, seeming to do well, and yeah.
As of right now, there are no pressing, urgent medical or dental needs, anything like that, correct?
I mean, she is a medically fragile kiddo, so there's always some level of urgency, but no, nothing pressing as of this moment.
Okay, nothing that needs to be addressed by the court today?
No.
Okay. Are there any therapies or services that are not in place that need to be, or anything that we're missing there?
Not that I am aware of. I believe all recommendations from service providers for Alana are being followed.
Okay. And the foster parents are able to continue the placement?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Regarding Alana, anything else you want the court to know today?
I don't think so. Not at this time.
Okay. Moving on to Ms. Beamer. What are her barriers to reunification?
Ms. Beamer's biggest barriers to reunification are just to continue to maintain like appropriate housing and things like concrete like that. But mainly her biggest one is to show that she's able to care for Alana's medically fragile state. Alana's needs are very in depth, so it requires a lot of work.
Okay. I guess with that, does she attend all of her parenting times?
She does. She attends very well. She's very engaged with Alana. Ms. Beamer does a good job of being in attendance. She responds quickly. And she does work to do what she's like asked to at those visits. So if somebody asks her to change what she's doing, she does try.
How often does she see Alana right now?
I believe right now she sees her several hours during the day on Tuesdays during therapy appointments, sees her again on Wednesdays for a 2-hour in-home visit. I believe that's her current visit schedule. And then if there's other various doctor's appointments or therapies, she is invited to those as well.
Okay. Does she attend therapy and medical appointments?
She does typically attend, to my knowledge, yes. I don't believe that she's typically missing those.
Okay. How is she learning to care for all of Alana's needs, medical needs?
So I think that has been the biggest struggle is like picking up on things. Ms. Beamer really does seem to try and be engaged. But there are some things that we have a home nurse, Miss Mize, who comes in and does instructions with Ms. Beamer during her in-home parenting times, and it says that there are some things that just continue to be confusing, such as medications seem to be something she's struggling to pick up on. Ms. Mize has said that she's tried on several occasions to like provide um, different ways to go through those medications. She has provided like a list of what the medications are for Ms. Beamer, but she continues to feel uncomfortable with those and not really understand.
If I can stop you real quick.
Yeah.
What part of it is she uncomfortable with? Ms. Beamer uncomfortable with?
Um, I believe she's uncomfortable with both the administration and like understanding what the medications each do. Um, which can be complicated when you're trying to coordinate care. If doctors are asking, well, why are we on this or that medication? If you don't understand why we're on this or that medication, that can cause issues. We recognize that it's difficult to keep track of several medications, so that's why Ms. Mize printed off like a list of what each medication is for, so that she had something to reference. But she just, it seems like she's not picking up on those from Ms. Mize.
How long has Ms. Mize been involved in the case?
Um, that I am not sure. I apologize.
Is it, well, I guess, can you categorize, I mean, is it
It
several
has been
months, just a
months.
month or two?
It has been months plural. Plural.
So prior to like the previous court hearing?
I believe prior or it started right around the time of the previous court hearing.
Okay. So roughly, I mean, at a minimum, 3 to 4 months.
I would say that's accurate.
Okay. Have you spoken to Ms. Beamer about this particular issue?
I have not, when I picked up the case and first met Miss Beamer, I wasn't aware of exact, like, concrete concerns from Miss Mize, so I have not been able to address this with Miss Beamer yet directly. I just know that it's a concern that has come up.
Okay. Has Ms. Beamer reached out to you and said, there are things that I just don't understand and I need additional help?
No, and that's why we do continue to keep the nursing hours, is in order to give her that time to ask those questions and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, I don't understand it. So that's just something we want to continue to monitor is to see if she's able to get there where she can pick up on this stuff. We want her to be able to make those changes and like make progress and fully grasp this. So that's why we keep those nursing hours. It's a time for her to ask any questions or go over things she's uncomfortable with. That was just Miss Mize's concern, was that it feels like she's addressed these things several times and Miss Beamer still doesn't quite seem to grasp them.
Do you know whether Ms. Beamer has reached out to the foster parents with some of these questions or for additional help?
I know that the foster parents are always willing to give answers, but I don't know that she's directly addressed them with the foster parents. As far as I'm aware, I don't believe she has.
Okay. And when we talk about the things that she's struggling with, I mean, how big of an issue is this in Ms. Beamer being able to care for Alana?
Um, it is a concern if she's not able to pick up on things that are important, like medication with a medically fragile kiddo, forgetting a medication, not administering it at the right time, or like switching something like that would be a very big deal. But if she's able to get to the point where she can address those concerns and can figure out a system to, even if she doesn't quite understand it herself, she can have it written down to like go over with a doctor. If she's able to come up with a system that works for her, that would be not as concerning. We just need to make sure that she's able to come up with a system to understand and be able to comprehend it.
Okay, if it hasn't happened yet, I guess what is being done to change that so it does happen?
We are working with, I know she also sees an early on worker, Miss Stacy. And so Miss Stacy, I was just speaking with actually earlier this morning and trying to talk through ideas of ways to help Ms. Beamer. So I did pass some of those ideas that she had along to Ms. Mize, just to see if there's a way to make those nursing hours more helpful for Ms. Beamer in order to address that. So we're working to try to figure out something that will work well for Ms. Beamer. Ultimately, we just need her to continue to be open about where she feels comfortable and where she doesn't, and continue to monitor to see how she does.
Is she doing that though? I mean, if she's not reaching out to you asking for more help, is she being open about the things that she's not comfortable with?
I believe that she's being open with Ms. Mize at least about it and with Ms. Stacy. It seems like she is communicating well with them, which I mean is the most important thing to communicate with. If she feels that Ms. Mize and Ms. Stacy are not helpful, then that would definitely be something that she should communicate with me. And then at that point, we would look at whether we needed to switch to try a new nurse or a new early on worker, or if it was the service in general that was unhelpful for her and how to address that then. But if she's continuing to work with her early on worker and her nurse, and we're trying to coordinate care between them, we're hoping to address that barrier.
When Ms. Beamer attends, I guess, other medical appointments, do you know if she's engaging in those conversations with those doctors and nurses and providers or not?
From what I've had reported to me by the visit coaches, she's not necessarily engaging in those appointments. She is attending, but she's not like having conversations, asking in-depth questions, that kind of thing.
So Alana has Down syndrome, correct?
Correct.
And it's my understanding that she also has a number of other related health issues and developmental issues.
Correct, yes.
Do you think Ms. Beamer has a full understanding of all of the challenges that Alana is going to face as she continues to grow and develop?
We're still trying to determine that if she does have that full grasp of it. I mean, Alana's care is hours every day of different like medication that needs to be administered, hooking her up to oxygen, like making sure she's getting to and from appointments, coordinating care between different providers. It is very extensive, so we're working to try to help her understand that full depth. That was another thing Ms. Mize was trying to work on with her, was she asked Ms. Beamer to like create a schedule of day to day. What are you doing for this kiddo? How does this look for you? When do you have time for feeding, for medication administration? Because she has meds she gets in the morning and meds she gets at night. And so I know that Ms. Beamer did complete a schedule that had morning medication administration and then her breakfast, lunch, and dinner on it. But I think that we need to revisit that schedule from that conversation I had with Ms. Mize. It sounds like we just got that, just to add a couple more things on there, to help Ms. Beamer understand the depth of what a day looks like taking care of Alana. Because there's a lot that goes into it, and there's working in like homework from physical therapy, from occupational therapy, from speech therapy, working on how she's eating. A lot of that stuff changes. So
Going forward, Alana, am I correct? Alana is going to need help and probably extensive training to develop even basic abilities to kind of care for herself and to function appropriately.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so if caring for Alana is a barrier for Ms. Beamer, um, we still have a long ways to go, don't we?
I would say yes at this time.
Um, how would you, just in terms of that barrier, how would you describe her progress during this report period? If you just had to categorize it.
Um, I would categorize it that she is definitely putting in that effort. She certainly loves her kiddo and wants to be there to take care of her and wants to spend that time with her. And she really is trying. I think that in some areas she is making progress, like in being more bold and asking some questions and just being honest. She's very honest about when she does feel like she's struggling. So I think those things are good. And then it's just working on helping her figure out a way to grasp those things.
So, okay. Would you agree if we were ever going to consider reunification, we would start by expanding her parenting time, maybe doing an overnight at some point? Would you agree with that?
Um,
Not that
if
she's ready for it, but
if we
just
were
that would
going to
kind of be,
expand, yes. Longer visits during the day, unsupervised would probably be a start, and then eventually an overnight visit would be the next step, yes.
would Miss Beamer be ready anytime soon to do any unsupervised parenting time, let alone an overnight?
I don't believe so at this time.
Um, you identified emotional stability as a barrier for Ms. Beamer. What progress has she made on that barrier?
Um, Ms. Beamer, I apologize. Let me just double check that I'm not mixing up my cases. Um, Ms. Beamer is continuing to take her medications, or she's not continuing to take her medications as often. We have been drug testing her for med compliance, and a lot of those drug tests are negative. So we would want to see her taking those medications for her emotional stability.
Do you know why she isn't taking those medications?
Um, I do not know at this time. I know she's also attending weekly EMDR therapy.
Okay. Going back to the medications, have you talked to her about the importance of this and how it all ties into the overall goal of reunification and what needs to be done to make progress towards reunification?
I personally have not, but I do know that the previous worker did discuss this with her.
And yet she's still is not medication compliant.
And not as of the last screen I've received, she's still not continuing to take those, at
Okay.
least as far as the screens are showing.
Is she participating fully in the EMDR therapy?
Um, to I believe that she is participating. She is going, she's attending, she's active in those sessions, she engages.
Okay. What other services, if any, have been provided to her?
Um, she does have the early on worker who comes to the house. We do her parenting times in the home if we can. She's also able to attend her therapies. So physical therapy, occupational therapy. Um, and then obviously we've talked about the nursing. Um, Early on provider is Miss Ann Stacy, who works with her on a weekly basis and is Miss Stacy is very good about engaging with the parents to help them in the best way she can. She yeah, I believe those are the current services we have in place, unless I'm forgetting something.
And she is employed, correct?
Yes, she's employed.
Does she have appropriate housing?
Yes.
Um, with all of Alana's needs, do you know whether she would be able to financially provide for herself and Alana if Alana was returned to her?
Um, Currently, she has been receiving gas cards to get to and from appointments, so we'd probably need her to increase her hours a little bit and determine what her childcare options would be. But those are barriers we believe we could work toward with her as we get closer to the potential of reunification. But as of right now, I don't know that her current financial state would provide for Alana at this moment.
Would,
She does provide snacks and stuff like that when she's coming, when she has Alana over. But I don't know if
would,
she'd be able to provide.
would you be able to work with her on a budget and to build into the budget estimated daycare costs and just other costs that she will assume if Alana was returned to her?
Yes, yes.
Regarding Ms. Beamer, anything else you want the court to know?
Um, I don't believe so at this time.
Okay. And then regarding the father, Mr. Sherrod, what are his barriers to reunification?
Many of his barriers are concrete things. He does not currently have appropriate housing or employment. He would need to resolve that. Um, there also have been some historic concerns about domestic violence for him. So we would want to refer to services for that, just to ensure that he's doing better, and has recovered from any past mistakes. But then I think the other biggest thing for him would also be showing that he can be a consistent parent for Alana, and that he'd be able to also comprehend her medical needs, because she, like I said, does have pretty extensive needs. So he would need to work on that as well.
He is exercising and supervised parenting time, correct?
Yes, he does have supervised parenting time. His attendance has been a little bit off and on. Um, but we want to continue to see that improve. It is still rather new to have him on the case, so
Have you spoken to Mr. Sherrod about Alana's extensive needs and whether it's realistic that he could provide for her?
Mr. Sherrod at our last meeting told me that currently he understands her needs. His problem is that he's currently living at the homeless shelter, and his other option is to reside with his mother, who recently had, I believe, a stroke. So he would feel like he is caretaking for both his mother and his child, and he feels like that isn't realistic. He does feel like if he can find appropriate housing and employment, though, he feels like he would be able to take care of her.
Would he be able, or has he described to you what Alana's needs are to demonstrate that he understands it?
Um, he hasn't described them exactly to me, but he does seem to understand from my conversation with him that she does have a lot of very extensive needs. He says that they'd be no problem for her. Um, we do have a referral in for him to work with a nurse as well, so he can kind of have that time to practically go through that all and make sure that the nurse is also seeing that. So I definitely want to see how, once he's able to start with that nursing service, I'd want to see how that goes, to ensure that. From my past conversations, it sounds like when he's at therapy appointments, he does well with like asking questions. It seems like he's grasping things, and is asking about what he doesn't understand, at those appointments, and is able to like understand it to some extent. It's just still very new to him, so we'd want to make sure that that continues and that if in nursing he's able to fully grasp the extent to which he'd be working with Alana.
And clearly, before any of that is a consideration, he needs to find employment and stable, appropriate housing.
That is true. Yes.
Are you providing services to help him find a job?
Yes, he's currently working with Mel Trotter, and they assist with housing and employment.
Okay. What is your recommendation today?
It is respectfully recommended that Alana Beamer remain a temporary ward under the care of DHHS and its contracted agencies, that Alana remain placed with a relative caregiver or licensed foster home, that parenting times be supervised between Ms. Beamer and Alana, and that Ms. Beamer comply with and benefit from her treatment plan, that parenting times be supervised from Mr. Sherrod and Alana, and that Mr. Sherrod comply with and benefit from his treatment plan, that Alana's caregivers comply with and benefit from Alana's treatment plan, and that a review hearing be held in 90 days.
One last question. How long has Alana been in foster care?
Um,
Am I right that it's been over a year and a half?
um, I am not sure of the exact date, but she has been in foster care since about the time she was born. So, yes.
Okay, thank you. Your Honor, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dubus?
Yes. Are you aware that the agency has been trying to get nursing assistants for Miss Beamer to educate her on the care throughout this entire case?
I am aware that it took a lot longer during the beginning to get Ms. Beamer the nursing care. I'm aware that it's relatively recent in the last several months that started.
Okay. And the child has pretty extensive needs that Miss Beamer needs to learn how to attend to, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so during her time though, Miss Beamer, she is actively engaged in trying to learn, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it just appears that more time is necessary, correct?
I believe so. If we give her more time, we'd be able to see if it's something she can grasp over a longer period of time. As we try different learning techniques, everyone learns differently.
Okay, and Miss Beamer, she is willing to do the work though, correct?
She seems to be. I've never had her say no or refuse to do something that someone asked her to do.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Simpkins?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Mitchell, you mentioned several barriers for my client, housing, employment, and domestic violence being three of them, correct?
That's correct.
According to the treatment plan, those are all strengths. Do you realize that?
Um, as of right now, he is not currently employed and he is residing in a homeless shelter. If the previous worker entered those as strengths, that may have been true at that time. But he is currently in a homeless shelter and unemployed.
Well, it indicated that he's working at a restaurant through Mel Trotter. Is that no longer accurate?
He does volunteer at the restaurant through Mel Trotter. I spoke with his case manager. I cannot remember his last name, but Terrell. He stated that Mr. Sherrod is engaging with them and working. There were just a couple of logistic things that he needed to work through, but he does fully expect for Mr. Sherrod to be able to find appropriate employment.
Well, so he's not working at a restaurant? I'm confused here because your report
He's
also says that he makes.
volunteering, but he's not currently getting paid, based on my conversation with Terrell.
Okay, well, the treatment plan, I should say, also says that he has an income of 900 a month. Is that accurate?
From my conversation with Mr. Sherrod and his case manager at Mel Trotter, that is not accurate.
I'm just going by what you and your agency submit. I understand it wasn't your report. I think it was the prior caseworker, but it says on
It
page
may have been
one.
accurate at the time, if he was getting paid. But I know that I spoke with him, just a week or two ago when Alana was in the hospital, and he was not currently employed at the time. He stated to me that he has no income. So unless he misunderstood my question, that is not currently the case. That may have been the case when the previous worker submitted this report.
Well, this report is dated December 5th of last year, so it's only a month old. Are you going to make your own treatment plan for Mr. Sherrod and go over it with him?
Yes, I'll review that. We automatically make a new treatment plan every 90 days, and in the meantime, we'll certainly revisit things that need to be added to his list of strengths versus needs.
And that treatment plan also said he was trying to find a third shift job so he could be available for all of Alana's visits and appointments. Do you know if that's accurate?
I believe that's still accurate from my conversation with him.
And there was no mention of domestic violence being a barrier in the current treatment plan. Why is that a barrier now?
It was just a concern that I know my supervisor had mentioned to me from a different case, was that there was some past concern of domestic violence. So that's just something that typically, if we know there was a past concern of it, we want to have somebody evaluate that and see if that continues to be an issue. Um, Usually we proceed with like a psychological evaluation or something similar. Um, or we will simply talk with the client and kind of get a sense of where they're at with that. As I'm still relatively new to this case, I've only been on it for 3 weeks. I haven't personally had that conversation with Mr. Sherrod. I usually like to, in initial meetings with parents, get things from their perspective mostly and understand where he's coming from. And he did not state that as a barrier. So I didn't think that he feels that that is still an issue or a concern for him, and he feels that he's made those changes. I would want to see him work in counseling though, as he does have a lot going on in his life and would need to deal with everything he has going on.
Well,
And
he
just
does have a lot going on, and that's my question. I'm not upset with you by any means. I'm just frustrated with the agency in general when one caseworker, creates a parent agency treatment plan, and none of these are barriers, but suddenly now they're barriers. I find that a little frustrating. So can you please go over with Mr. Sherrod what you perceive as barriers, and if they're indeed not barriers, can you update the plan, I guess?
yes.
Okay. I also noticed in your case service plan, on page 19 at the top, it said, well, I guess it's your prior caseworker's service plan. It says that Mr. Sherrod has been assessed as making poor progress toward his barriers of parenting skills and child characteristics. Um, However, in the parent agency treatment plan, it notes that he's going to his parenting times twice a week. He engages very well. He feeds Alana, reads signs to her, plays on the floor with her, is conscious of her safety, and packs food, diapers, and wipes for parenting time. So my question is, why is that poor progress if he's doing so well in his visitations with her?
Um, because he's only just recently started engaging with this case. The progress was marked as poor because Alana has been in care for over a year and only just recently has he been engaging. Um,
Let me
and
stop you there. With
yeah,
all due respect, he just got out of jail about a month and a half ago, correct?
um,
The
I'm not
answer is
sure
yes.
exactly on the timeline, so I'll believe you, yes.
Okay. And at the last report here, at the last hearing in October, I asked the prior caseworker, Ms. Schichtel, if she had sent him anything in jail to work on, and her answer was no. So really, he's only had about a month and a half, 2 months, a few months, I should say, to engage with you and your agency, and he has, correct?
He does engage. There are times where we'll go for a week and no one will hear from him. I know there was a time he said he lost his phone. And then there was another case where just in the last week he said he had a family emergency out of state and left his phone when he went to deal with that and could not respond to messages. The trouble is that when he's had those times, he has not shown to the visits with Alana and has not told the agency that he's not going to be arriving. Um, so we need to see that consistency improve in order to change that evaluation from poor to partial or from partial to substantial. That's kind of the biggest concern is that consistency piece. When he's at those visits, he does extremely well. He's very engaged with Alana. He engages with her service providers. He asks questions and he does a great job of playing games with her, playing with toys. He'll watch videos on the phone with her. He does really well at those visits. We just need to see that consistency improve for him.
Um, and I think this may have been addressed already, but you have a nurse? Yeah, I think you did mention this. There is a nurse that's going to be set up to help him learn how to care for Alana.
We've requested that funding for a nurse, yes. I know that was something the previous worker sent over on one of her last days, and I did ask about it last week. And it sounds like that's still in the approval process. So that is something I'm moving forward with as quickly as possible, because that is a huge piece of this case, is Alana's very extensive care.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any follow-ups, Mr. Taburin?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Dubus?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, and I don't have any follow-ups either. So thank you. Ms. Mitchell, you may step down from the witness stand. Any additional witnesses or evidence to present at this time, Mr. Taburin?
No, thank you.
Any witnesses or evidence to present, Ms. Dubus?
No, thank you.
And Mr. Simpkins?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Then I believe we're to the time for a closing statement, Mr. Taburin.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. I did meet with Alana at the foster home. First of all, I can't thank the foster parents enough for providing such great care for her and with all of her needs and the challenges that presents. Your Honor, I think the recommendation is appropriate. I know we're not at a PPH today. My concern is how far still we are away from, especially Ms. Beamer, but both parents, from being able to provide proper care for Alana. And I think I can, it's kind of two categories here. One is, providing basic care in terms of housing and, keeping her alive and healthy and safe. There's also the second part of it, which is the extensive amount of work that will go into maximizing the abilities and the potential that she does have. It just item as well. It's just really concerning how far we still have to go. I think Alana turns 2 in April. And I don't feel comfortable at this point. And again, I know it's not a PPH, but I'm not comfortable at this point that we could even move to unsupervised parenting time in the near future, let alone talk about reunification. I know Mr. Sherrod is very, very early in terms of his participation, but it concerns me when his comment is that he understands her needs, Alana's needs. It just doesn't seem possible. Number one, with just the limited amount of time, but he hasn't been involved to the extent where he could understand her needs. I know, again, he needs to find employment and housing before we even consider reunification, but I just think we are a long, long ways away from reunification. We can address that at the PPH at the next hearing. But I think the recommendation is appropriate. The parenting time should remain supervised, and I think we need to see substantial progress very quickly. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Taburin. Ms. Dubus.
Yes, Your Honor, as the court is aware, we've been waiting a really long time to get this nursing into place so that Ms. Beamer could be trained on this care. This child does have pretty extensive needs, so it's not surprising that, it's difficult for Ms. Beamer to grasp. Now that we finally have it, it's only been a report period. It sounds like she is engaged during the visits and she's trying to learn, so I would just ask that the court give her some additional time so that she can continue to be engaged with the nursing, continue to learn and ask the questions that she has. Thanks.
What do you make of her own failure to maintain taking her own psychotropic medication?
I would just encourage her to continue to do so. That's been an ongoing issue throughout this case. So all I can do is just encourage her to continue to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Simpkins.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, Mr. Sherrod was released from his incarceration, I believe, in September. So in the reports that I read preparing for today, everything indicated that he was participating and going to everything and doing really well. So maybe I was misled a little bit in those reports, but overall, I think he is doing well. He may need to work on his consistent communication, but I agree he does need some time now to hopefully get this nursing set up and learn. But from what I can tell, he's trying his best here at this point, and I would encourage him to continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simpkins. I do note that we have the foster parents present. Any statement the foster parents would wish to make at this time? All right, I'm seeing a shaking head, so I'm going to take that as a no. Well, this case has been open for a while, and as I was concerned right from the outset because of the child AB's extensive medical needs, there is a huge amount of medical education for either parent to obtain in order to properly care for the child. And it has taken a long time to arrange that. I knew that from a previous case with a medically intensive child that it's not easy to arrange a nurse to train the parent in the appropriate care and steps. And it does appear that Miss Beamer has been making some headway in obtaining that training, although there are also items of concern in there. I did note that, one time the baby during parenting time picks up a little piece of plastic and starts chewing on it. Well, obviously can't do that, or a plastic bag. And, other times where there were questions about the uh, proper cleaning and things like that of the equipment, all of which have to be absolutely mastered, before reunification. And so, I share in the frustration in the slowness of getting that training in place, and then also the slowness in, uh, uh, having the training taken seriously enough to take effect. And that combines with my next concern, which is Miss Beamer's failure to take her medication. And I do believe that, part of the purpose of that medication is to establish a consistent or a baseline in uh, one's thought process. Miss Beamer would benefit from that, but nonetheless, for some reason, does not take the medication. I also did note a reminder in the report that a sibling visit was not able to be presented because Miss Beamer hadn't earlier authorized vaccinations for some of the other children. And that just leaves me shaking my head, like, what is the disconnect here between what doctors recommend and what Miss Beamer, the mother in this case, thinks is appropriate for these kids? It's just straightforward. If the doctor prescribes your medication, you either take it or you go back to the doctor and you say, you know what, I want to revisit this issue. And you get an alternative doctor's order, but there isn't an option where you say, well, you know what, the doctor ordered it, but I don't think it's needed, so I'm not going to do it. And the concern carries over here to the baby, obviously, in a medically intense baby. The failure to do one thing can be fatal to the baby. And so those doctor's orders have to be scrupulously complied with. There isn't an option where you say, I'm going to follow some and not follow others. So I am going to go furthering, this case. Lisa, is this one that I'm going to transfer to another judge?
Yes, it is going to Judge Gottlieb.
Okay, I've been returned. I've been sort of for the last 4 years loaned by the Civil Criminal Division to the Family Division to help with child welfare cases. However, the Chief Judge, Judge McNabb, has declared that I will now return full-time to the Civil Criminal Division from whence I came, and my family cases will go to different family judges. That's because we elected 2 new family judges and we're reapportioning our caseload here at the circuit court, and this is part and parcel of that plan that's going on. So this case will go to Judge Gottlieb for the next hearing. with, of course, all the case history and reports, et cetera. So she will be able to get up to speed. Lisa, are we due to have a permanency planning hearing the next hearing?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's what we'll do then in front of Judge Gottlieb. So for the time being, AB will remain a temporary court ward in the care of DHHS and its contract agency. And AB will remain placed in a licensed foster home as she has been. And with thanks to the foster parents here, the medically intensive children are much more responsibility than non-medically intensive children, because really it becomes a life and death matter 24 hours a day, to supervise the child. And I'm greatly thankful for the service of the Harpers on behalf of the state of Michigan and this court and myself personally. I want to convey that well I can. So parenting times should continue to be supervised between Miss Beamer and AB, and Miss Beamer should comply with and benefit from her treatment plan. Parenting times between Mr. Sherrod and AB should also be supervised at this time, and Mr. Sherrod should comply with and benefit from his treatment plan. And we will conduct a permanency planning hearing. However, it will be in front of Judge Gottlieb. And Lisa, what's going to be the date and time?
It is April 1 at 10 a.m. on Zoom.
April 1st, 10 a.m., and it will be via Zoom. Anything else we need to place on the record, Mr. Taburin?
No, thank you.
Ms. Dubus?
No, thank you.
And
I think we just lost Mr. Simpkins.
I was going to say, I thought we had Mr. Sherrod's attorney here, Mr. Simpkins, but I'm going to take that as a no from him as well, and conclude today's hearing with thanks for everyone, the patience and the hard work on this case. I am assured that this very medically intensive little girl is being well taken care of, and I'm grateful for that. With that, we are concluded.
Thank you, Your Honor.